Well, guys, last week we talked a lot about stats and studies and some of the questions as to what was going on with young guys these days. And I figured let's quit talking about that, in terms of at a secondary level. Let's actually get a couple guys who are just coming out of their 20s, looking back at their 20s now. So I thought we'd do that. A couple great guys that I know and work with. I think you'll enjoy the conversation. So welcome to Young Guns or Young Guys Part 2. Welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, guys, welcome back to Finding Traction. And if you listen to the last podcast, then this podcast will make sense. If you didn't listen to the last podcast, then this podcast will make only partly sense. So first of all, I encourage you to go back, listen to the last one, which is all about what's going on with young men. And in that podcast, I actually referenced three studies by Philip Zimbardo, Pew Research, and the book iGen. And we talked a lot about how young people's brains were essentially getting rewired. If I was going to, I've got some good pushback from that podcast. And one of the things people said to me was, Vern, it's not like just men are totally digitally online, women are as well. And I guess what I'm finding, and the research is showing that there is an inordinate impact on both young men and young women, but it's different. On young women, it's more on their mental health, but on young men, it's more, the effect is on their maturation, on them becoming more mature. And so you have to go back and listen to that one. And I figured enough of stats. What I thought I'd do is I'd get a couple guys who are just out of their 20s or just about to be out of their 20s, and I would get their kind of thoughts on it. I would get a bit of their story and how they've kind of experienced this. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun. So I've got two guys. I've got Mack here. I've got Cody here. And so let's start with you, Mack. If you want to introduce yourself, how old you are, and then maybe a little bit of how, porn kind of got embedded in your life. Oh, by the way, before I get there, Mack is kind of detailing his recovery journey on a podcast called Porn Free Millennial. And so it's really cool to hear, as he's just entering into some of the early stages of it, just how he's navigating that. So if you're interested in that from a millennial's perspective, check out his podcast. So welcome, Mack.
Hey, well, first of all, Vern, thanks for having me on. You were a big inspiration for starting that. So just want to say, first of all, appreciate you. I'm 32 years old, or 32 years young, as I now say, now that I started to get a little bit more sore and,
Yep.
But I would say like how porn got embedded in my life, definitely, pretty innocuous. I think it was just like watching a movie,
Mm-hmm.
That was my first time I saw nudity. And I'd say probably around the age of 10, it just kind of started to creep in. I would
Mm-hmm.
say like talking to friends in school, having sleepovers and
Yep.
just, starting to, I'd say, uncover that, through those relationships. I think it really got embedded like to probably more of a problematic level
Mm-hmm.
when I was in middle school.
Okay.
And middle school, high school, college, I would say is pretty regular thing that I would do. I'd have times in my life where I knew it was wrong. I wanted to kick the habit,
Mm-hmm.
and would kind of quit, but didn't really quite understand anything about it. Just knew kind of that no one really talked about it. You needed to hide it. You needed to be secret. But I had no idea of, how it would affect me later on in life,
Right.
how it would affect me later on in my relationships, after
Right.
college.
Well, and you use the word innocuous, which is a great word. It's kind of the idea in that article I mentioned called "The Slow Drip of Fantasy." If you haven't seen it, and you would say early on through your middle school years, it took quite a few years before it didn't present itself to you as harmful. Is that accurate? You know, how many years before you would actually say, "Hey, this is something's going on here"?
This is going to kind of sound crazy, but it really didn't hit me hard until I was probably about to get married.
Okay,
And that was when I was 27.
27.
That was
Okay.
that was when I had probably a first serious conversation with
Mm,
my partner.
yeah.
And I've had a few girlfriends, but that was the first time I actually had like a serious conversation about it,
Okay.
and that it was an issue, and that was something that I needed to really work on, and
Right.
something I needed to be honest about,
Okay.
and
So we're
something that I
talking.
had to, yeah, something I had to look at for me, not just the person in the
Right.
relationship, but you know, how is this affecting me as a person,
Right.
and you know, does it really serve a purpose? I think that's
Right.
when I started to really ask those questions.
Okay. You were going at 27. So we're talking at 15 years plus of engagement at some level. Well, let me also bring in Cody. Cody, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, how old you are, and then a little bit of maybe a similar journey for you in terms of how it got embedded.
Yeah, sure. Well, I also wanted to take a second, Vern, to thank you for being invited. This is something I've kind of always wanted to do, is
Hmm.
to hop on a podcast and talk about and share my experience. So thanks for the invite a couple weeks ago. Uh,
Welcome.
um, so I am 29, and I think my really when porn started to get embedded in my life, I was about 6 years old. I had suffered some abuse for a few years at that point.
Okay.
When there was a popular movie that I remember I would constantly go back to. I remember it was a two-box set, and
Hmm.
I'd always pick the right hand VHS. If anybody can probably pick,
I
and
think we might have had the same experience. I'll just say that. Sorry.
I feel, um, so I would say for me that it was really innocuous at first.
Hmm.
I be reminded as an adult that movie that I kept watching had some nudity in it, and I really connected, Vern, with what you had said. There was like a marked difference in 2010,
Hmm.
and like the smartphones kind of started to come out and be
Right.
a lot more popular. I got access to like a first kind of like smart device that dating myself a little bit here, but the iPod Touch, when
Okay.
it kind of came out, that was just my ultimate downfall.
Hmm.
Till that point, my acting out with pornography had be kind of become hit and miss. The computer kind of didn't really seem like a, I don't know if the right word is safe, but a good place to act out, because there were so
Right.
many backdoors to try and find, evidence or whatever that my parents would stumble across. So the smart device was really where it kind of turned up the heat for me. And I was about 15 when that happened.
Hmm.
So between 6 and 15, it was basically whenever I could get my hands on it.
Right.
But then 15 kind of onward, it was embedded in my life as a daily or sometimes multiple times daily habit. And I really connected with kind of Mack's experience, because this was like one of the things you say, Vern, that this is how I take care of me.
Yep.
Uh, I don't have needs. I'm the low maintenance, invisible kid who can just kind of read the emotions of the family and then,
Hmm.
pack it in at the end of the day.
Right.
Uh, and I would really say that I brought it well into marriage. My wife had no idea.
Yep.
Kind of like Matt, the Matt Dobschutz had said, "Oh, it's this thing I dealt with years and
Yep.
years ago. Past it now." And it was really then when I kind of started to see, and I don't want to, put the cart in front of the horse here, but when I really started to see the not so innocuous nature of the
Hmm.
habit I was engaging in.
Okay,
So it's
how old were you now when you were now engaging in this serious relationship that ended up in marriage?
I was 21, so it
Oh my
was,
goodness.
yeah, it's pretty early on for me.
Yeah, you were really married early statistically. And
Yes.
from there. Well,
Mhm.
this whole idea about, and one of the things, and the reason I want you guys on is because we're talking about subtle changes. And it's very hard to connect with guys in their early 20s and say, guy, you're in the middle of what you're viewing and what you're a part of. This is going to subtly change you. It's going to significantly change you, but the changes are going to be subtle over time. And those kind of things. And that was, it's been used way too many times, the imagery of a frog, boiling to death in the kettle kind of thing, right? But I would love to hear a little bit of, now you're looking back over, a good 10, 12-year period of time. In what ways would you say that porn slowly changed you? Either it limited your maturing, or it hampered you, or even maybe caused you to regress. Mac, why don't you just say, what would be, again, you're saying, okay, I see these effects, maybe not day to day, but if I look over a longer view, these are the effects it had.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I mean, there's a lot that I could probably talk about, but I think a few ones that stand out to me, uh, emotional intelligence, I think was definitely stunted. I think especially with women, like
Mm,
being in relationships with women, being in friendships with women, it's just kind of like I viewed them differently.
yep.
I had a different lens because, growing up as a kid, you see these, pretty graphic images,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like you kind of have an idea of maybe like, that's maybe what to expect, or, that's what people like. That's how they want to be treated.
Right.
This is how I should act. And, completely, that's not the case. And I think that like really affected, uh, the ability to get into relationships too.
Okay.
I didn't really date a lot in high school, where I
Mm-hmm.
probably could have. I kind of look back, actually, it was like my first girlfriend. I think like why I broke up with her like twice was because of porn. But it
Mm,
was in my memory, it's almost like I kind of like put that away.
mm,
It's like I kind of stashed that memory away as, oh no, like, you did it for another reason. But really, I think it was porn for sure. And
okay.
then I look back at my other relationships, right? And it's just been always there. It's always in the
Mm,
background. Uh, and then I think like, it's like respect for women, talking to them, maybe like their opinions matter a
mm-hmm.
little bit less
Right.
because I have this power,
Right.
I have everything at my fingertips. So definitely there was, I mean, maybe a little bit of a sense of entitlement for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say for myself, though, I think I started to become a sexual object myself. Going into college, that's where I started to see like more of my value as a person was this like sexualized object.
Mm,
Like
okay.
where, hey, like my self-worth is more intertwined with how my performance is, dating women, or, dating the hottest girl at the party, or whatever. It was
Mm,
kind of like a game. But that's, I think, like that culture that I think young men grow up with, isolated, right?
right.
It's kind of like it's all pushing them the same direction. Definitely pushed me the same direction, to
Mm,
where that's what I thought, you know, that's how you could be cool. That's how kind of your status with other men. And
right.
I think that really like stunted, my focus with education,
Mm-hmm.
career at times, relationships. It seems like all those like were like debts that were accruing for me.
Mm,
And then they all kind of came due like when I finally, met the person I wanted to marry, met the person that really the relationship itself was genuine, right?
right.
And I had to pay those debts. And
Mm,
I was very ill equipped to
wow.
handle that with maturity, with strength. Completely handled it the wrong way.
Mm,
And I think I'd kind of end on, what always shocked me was I kind of found out that I was dishonest. And I always thought of myself as somebody that had integrity, that told the truth.
mm,
What I basically, if I look at you, I'm going to shake you in the hand, and you know that I'm going to get the job done, or I'm telling
right.
you the truth, right? And one thing that I've kind of learned just through reflection and therapy, all of that, is I kind of felt for a very long time, until I really took it seriously and started my recovery. I don't think I didn't really feel like I could look somebody in the eyes and
Okay.
feel like I was fully telling them the truth, or fully, showing who I was as a genuine person.
Right.
And to really reflect on that after, 2 decades
Right.
almost,
Yeah.
it's kind of a shocking thing, because that's how, I was to the person I was with. Was this
Mm.
completely different person than I thought I was.
Mm. Well, and
So,
that,
but it's slowly over time though, right?
right. And so if you don't mind sharing, how did those debts end up getting it's almost like a credit card accruing interest rates are rising, and at some
Mm-hmm.
point your interest payments are overwhelming you. How did that end up finally playing out for you at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of pain, a lot of
Mhm.
broken trust. Eventually it did end in a divorce, unfortunately for me,
Okay.
after 5 years of marriage. And I
Mm.
think for me, looking back at it, I could have paid more attention to my credit card bill.
Mm.
I
Okay.
could have paid more attention, and been like, hey, is it really healthy to be spending, my credit card this way? I
Right.
should really be paying my balances off. I should be working towards recovery. But
Right.
I had really no idea, like
Right.
we've been talking about. It's something that kind of just creeps in very slowly, very sneaky.
Yep.
It's like you
Yeah.
barely even know it's there until something really important is that. It always seems like when something's very important in your life,
Right.
where you need to be that strong person, and that person with integrity. And
Mm.
then voila, hey, here's all your debt.
Yeah.
And it's due today, and
And
here's
it's
the
what
interest rate.
and you can't pay it all back. Yeah. Okay. So
Dave Ramsey's yelling at me saying, what are
yeah,
you doing, Mac?
there you go. All right. I didn't intend this to be a financial podcast, but you can also apply that to your finances as well. Cody, how about you? You look back and you go, okay, this idea of porn slowly changing me, it giving me a little trickle of costs or a little trickle of changes. In a longer term, the effects were marked and significant, but short term they're not. How would you itemize the costs or the changes that happened over a period of time?
Well, I found for me that it hampered my progress,
Okay.
kind of developing and growing like mentally and emotionally.
Okay.
Uh, like, I really connect with the idea that like if you're constantly using porn to kind of cope with any big emotion, negative or positive,
Mm-hmm.
like, you deserve a treat today, or you had a
Right.
really bad day. There's
Yeah.
no way, shape, or form you're really feeling those feelings.
Mm.
So I spent, decades, it feels like, not feeling the full weight of what it really felt to be sad, what it really felt to be frustrated, what it felt to be happy. The thing that I look back on, I used to have friends who used to make comments about me and like, man, why are you so angry all the time?
Mm.
Because I would walk around that I was just pissed off at the world, having to make up all sorts of stories on why the dishwasher had a new dent in it, why there was a depression in the wood for the bathroom door,
Mm.
whatever it might be. I was finding that just the tiniest thing would just set me off because of this. I wasn't feeling any emotion aside from just anger.
Mm.
And then where it kind of hampered me mentally, I really felt like I struggled with feeling like I needed to have something. I needed to have it now. My needs couldn't wait.
Right.
Uh, I was extremely insecure, especially like 17 and 18. Started lifting weights with a friend, and I really truly believe that this kind of poured into like I firmly believe I started abusing steroids because I wanted something and I wanted it right then. I wanted to feel better about myself.
Mm.
And for me, this kind of just escalated into, continuing to like the first serious relationship I ever had was because it was essentially like crossing the flesh line.
Right.
Pornography wasn't doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It really resonated with what Max said in saying, like, you kind of start to view women really without even noticing it as inferior, as objects, as that they're just something that's only there for me. really just the self-centered view of,
Right.
woman who was created in man's image, who was created in God's image. So I found for me that it was creeping out in such tiny little ways that it was just really, I felt like I was a 6-year-old trapped in a 20-something's body. And I was actually just having a conversation with my wife. I listened to your podcast and kind of recalling to myself, like, the growth that I've experienced in these last 2 or 3 years of really trying to take this seriously and get
Yep.
free from the porn habit. I feel like I've grown a decade, mentally, coupled with therapy, coupled
Yep.
with, groups in the podcast and all those
Mhm.
other, that it has really kind of changed. I deal with emotions now in healthy ways. I feel them.
Yep.
I run away from the power of feeling frustrated or sad or upset. So that's where, for me, I would really say, like, kind of as a person, I was just walking around with, the temper and the
Right.
capacity of a 6-year-old who just, this is how I took care of myself.
Well, and so many people have described when they begin a serious process of recovery, it's almost like your life has got that play pause button and it's been on pause. And, wherever that became the predominant obsessive factor in your life, it's almost like so much of your growing up just got put on pause. Can I ask you how, because you were in a relationship earlier than Mac was. Can I ask a little bit of how you felt that bill came due as you tried to navigate your marriage? How did that play out in terms of trying to be a new husband in a new marriage? Did you see the effects of that play out as well? The bill coming due?
Yeah, I would say so. So initially, I'm going to go back to this previous relationship I was
Mhm.
talking about, like
Yep.
18. I had so little self-worth. I allowed this person to run my life, to
Mm.
allow me to do things that I never in a million years would ever do again.
Mhm.
And be in an extremely abusive relationship because of how little self-worth that I
Yep.
had because of my habit. And then carrying into marriage, where I started noticing where I was starting to get pinged was, that was where I started to really realize there was a division between who I was portraying and who I actually was.
Mm.
Every little lie that I put, it was like a swear jar, is kind of what it felt like.
Okay.
Every lie was, how was your day today? Oh, it was a good day today. Flat out lie.
Mm.
Or, why do you go to work so early? Oh, well, I have, it takes me a while to get ready. When really I'm just watching porn before work because I can't deal with my life. And it really came due, Vern. I got hit with the bill pretty hard.
Mm.
I had, somebody knocking on my door, so to speak,
Yep.
looking to collect payment.
Mm.
Kind of like my kneecaps were in trouble kind of
Okay.
situation. So
Oh,
I think,
now we're into sports betting
Yeah,
and
it's
betting
like
on
the
horses.
the porn mafia was after you.
yeah,
Exactly.
So like,
exactly. So I
Okay.
remember I was looking around this house that I was living at in a small town in Oregon,
Yeah.
and we had no food in the cupboards. I had
Okay.
a car sitting in the driveway that I hadn't made payments on in 6 months,
Oh my.
and I had no money in the bank account. I'm sitting in what is essentially a cinder block house where anytime you turn on the heater, bugs come crawling out of it.
Oh my.
There's mold on the walls. It was a shack that somebody put sheetrock and flooring into. And I looked around and I was just kind of finally had that realization, heard somebody, proverbially banging on the door, like,
Hmm.
you know, because you can't hold a steady job. You're not really inclined to work all that hard for your family. You keep lying. You're
Hmm.
living very, very, sadistic double life.
Right.
Time to pay up, buddy. You
Wow.
keep stuff straight. And
Hmm.
was that was I believe that was June of 2016. So I had been
Oh wow.
married just over a year and couldn't take it anymore. The bills all came due.
Wow.
Sometimes and figuratively.
Okay. My goodness. Okay. Well, let's do this then. And Mac, I'm going to have you go first. And this is, if you're listening to this, and I know I got a lot of older people listening to this, but some of the older people have kids, teenagers and 20s. So this might be a helpful thing for them to listen to. I know I've had my nephews listening to this and feeding back on it, but you guys are just ending your 20s, moving into your early 30s. And I'm going to, like an old Brad Paisley country song, have you write a letter to yourself when you're 19, 20, moving into your 20s. So you get the ability to do that in this time warp. So Mac, I'd love to hear from you a little bit of what you would say if you had a young guy, 18, 19, 20, just beginning to move into this stage. How would you address, he's online all the time, maybe it's video games, maybe it's porn, maybe it's doesn't think it's a big deal. I'd love to hear just a little bit of how you would take him out for a car ride and say, hey, I'd love to share a little bit of my lessons from what you could do.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like the first thing I was thinking about. Was the first advice I'd give to somebody is like to talk to somebody about it. Talk to someone that is a mentor figure to you, someone that you respect, someone that you have a good relationship that you trust. I know for me, I never really had that talk with my dad that much.
Yep.
It ended up being me when I hit rock bottom, when the porn mafia was coming at my door, going for my kneecaps. I ended up reaching out to a sex addiction therapist. That was really the first person that I talked to.
Okay.
So I think that would be my first piece of advice, would be to talk to someone, a mentor, talk to anybody, talk to your parents, talk to a friend. Because I think the thing that porn does is it really isolates us. It makes us feel like we have this deep secret. And if we tell somebody, they're going to laugh at us, and, they're going to say that, oh, wow, like, I can't believe you did that.
Right.
Guys, hate to break it to you, but at least as a man, maybe there's a unicorn out there that's never, seen porn, but I think it's one thing that is a relatable thing that you can talk to. And I've found so much strength, and that's why I started my podcast. It's why I started writing on Substack, is because I know there's so many people out there that just have not talked about it, but they know it's not something they want to quit. It's not really working for them. Right. But sometimes it's like the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Is just to open up and talk about it. But I would say once you start talking about it and you get that validation from somebody, someone says, I dealt with that too. If I was in a car with that person, talking to them, say, hey, I've struggled with this for a very long time. There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
The shame would be that you never talked about it, that you just let it, you kind of just let it keep going without, actually addressing it. And, for me, going to therapy was huge.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of found logical reasons for why I was going to porn. Very logical reasons that anyone could look at and say, that makes total sense.
Yep.
And that's typically trauma. That's typically with addictions. You're dealing with some sort of trauma, and that's just what you latched onto.
Right.
And so I think that's like super important, and I don't know if I'd be telling someone maybe at that age, but that's something that they could think about, is somebody, if they don't have that mentor, seeing a professional. That's what they get paid to do.
Yep.
That's what they're licensed to do, is just to help talk through that stuff. And I've gone through so much growth and so much like internal, like searching and knowledge that I've learned about myself, and like why I went to that, why I struggle with that. And it's really helped me out a ton with my recovery. And I think just like learning more about it, I would say, now at this age, you have at your fingertips, like podcasts, like yours, Matt's.
Yeah.
You have YouTube. There's a ton of TED Talks that are absolutely fantastic, that talk about actually scientific effects that this could have on like your neural pathways, like how you develop. There's a lot of science behind it. There's also TED Talks that talk about the industry.
Yeah.
and how it's not such a great industry for people
Mhm.
that are involved with it, uh, and then I think the last thing would just be to take action. So,
Mhm.
find a community of people, write something down on paper. I didn't, it's gonna sound funny, but I didn't really write anything down until I was like 27 of like a plan. Is that kind of crazy? Like,
Yeah.
isn't that crazy? Like, think about all the things I went through. I went through school, I played
Yeah.
sports, like you got,
Yeah.
you write down goals like, hey, I want to, be able to lift this much at this time.
Right.
And probably like the thing that like I struggled with the most in my life, that I've
Mm.
gotten the most pain from, the most
Right.
hardship. I couldn't even write down a single piece of paper, like what my plan was for the week.
Mm. Okay.
And I think that's like how deep of an issue it is in our society.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think those three things I'd tell somebody.
Oh, thank you. And just to give a point of reference, when he said Matt, he was referring to Porn Free Radio, Matt Dobschute's great TED Talk. Just the intro one is The Demise of Guys, Philip Zimbardo. A great start on that. A couple resources to look at. Okay, Cody, you get to go back and talk to your 18, 19, 20-year-old self, or somebody who looks just like you, um, who's who's just kind of having an inkling. Yeah, everyone says it's no big deal, but they're going, yeah, but it feels like this could be a big deal for me. And that's what we're really trying to get at is people who are mature beyond their age, who are asking and looking ahead and going, okay, where I want my life to go. So what would you say?
I would say for sure somebody dealing with that. I know this sounds like super cliche, but like now's the best time to stop and to re-educate yourself and to grow with,
Mm,
you have literally your best years ahead of you,
mhm.
past self or whoever might be listening to this.
Yeah.
Uh, and it does not have to be, a proverbial porn vortex where you blink and you're 29 and you're sitting on a podcast looking back at your 20s and thinking, man, how on earth did the
Right.
last years just evaporate and now I'm here? So I actually had kind of like a two-stage answer. I really liked a lot of the things that Max said, and that's probably going to sound really repetitive. But
Oh.
one of the things you mentioned, Vern, was you got older guys and younger guys.
Mhm.
So older guys listening to this, coming from, I think now it seems like two guys that I can say didn't really have super great mentors or dads to
Mhm.
talk to them about this. Getting curious about, if you're aware that there might be a problem, instead of coming at it from a place of shame,
Yep.
coming from a place of understanding, why does somebody keep going back to this
Mm.
behavior, to these things, and not doing what my dad did, where he would sit 3 inches from my face, and the only thing he could say is, "Women don't like to be treated like that."
Mm.
That's the only
Okay.
advice I got. And to younger guys, I would definitely say, kind of echoing what Max said, is the longer you go in this habit, um, trust me, the worse the behavior gets.
Mm.
Um, I have a personal friend right now who's going through some really really bad issues right now
Mm.
because he let his porn stuff get out of control,
Mm.
and he's in the process of losing his marriage from it because
Mm.
also how he treated his wife.
Right.
And it might seem really hard to believe, but as an 18-year-old, this may seem like it's only affecting you right now, or as somebody's going through the midst of their 20s, might seem like it's only affecting you, but that's just a short-term thing.
Yeah.
This will eventually affect somebody else. You will
Mhm.
be somebody into this, just like thousands of other guys have done and have had to go back and repair. And building the language to talk about it, getting curious with yourself instead of coming from a place of shame. Oh, I cannot believe I did that again. I'm such a X, Y, and Z, like we've all done.
Yeah.
Go, why did I go here today? Why was that the thing that got me charged up, that sent me down the rabbit hole?
Mm.
And taking a step back to understand, and to not, this is one of the things that marked a turning point for me, because Jay Stringer in his book Unwanted
Mhm.
offers a lot of help with wanting to understand your behavior from a sense of compassion
Yep.
instead of self-hatred, because hatred never gets us the results we're looking for.
Right.
So that's, I mean, in so many words, what I would tell to somebody is try and analyze your behavior. If you have a setback, it's okay. We're all still dealing with that.
Yep.
And to just remember to just get back up and really follow what Max said of, you know, getting current with somebody and talking really, you know, openly and being vulnerable with somebody about how this is affecting your life, or even if you don't really feel like it is, just talking to somebody about it,
right.
being able to talk about it.
Well, and there's a word that I learned from Jay Stringer. I think it's in there, the idea of not just having kindness toward your story, but also some curiosity. And come on, most of us got into porn because we were curious. Man, I can see beautiful girls undressed for me. I mean, what young guy isn't that, you know, we're curious, right? But I think what you're also advocating is maybe be curious about what changes it's having on you, and going, I'm going to be curious. Maybe this is changing me or will change me more than I think. Maybe as I listen to all these guys' stories, like today, listening to Cody, your story, and Mac, your story, maybe marriage won't change anything. Maybe I'll just be exactly who I am and who I've become by these habits. In fact, marriage will just reveal all of the stuff that I've developed in a negative place in my life. It won't change me. It won't take my problems away. It will just reveal what I've allowed to develop. Now, that's a scary thought. So, and guys are marrying later. So you go into your 30s as a single person and you're now fully developed in this. Marriage isn't gonna rescue you. It's just gonna reveal who you've become. So Mac and Cody, thank you guys so much for your vulnerability, being willing to share. Guys, I'm just thankful for that. We're you know, Cody used the word VHS, which would mean that he's a millennial, I think. But I'm a baby boomer, and I want to just say they didn't sound like old farts. My kid brother sent me this meme that showed these old guys down through the generations saying, young people just don't want to work. And it was really, you know, it was kind of one of these things. If you're hearing that, you've heard us wrong, guys. I hope you're not taking that away. But again, Mac and Cody, thanks guys for being on.